Hello and welcome to my Shaddoll Invoked deck profile, which is not the only winner for the last week choices of the deck profile, because there are 3 decks that got the same number of votes from the generator list, which is obviously Shaddoll Invoked, Pendulum Magicians, and Ultrageist. Now I plan to do all 3 decks, depending on A, B, and D, of course the letters, because I have those shown, in the entire week, but unfortunately my laptop has died. So at the moment, until I get a new hard disk for switching things, and all of the files unfortunately got lost as well, so future videos kind of get ruined. But until next week, hoping you will still enjoy this list specifically, and I'm hoping next week's things will be fixed 100%. So just to let you know, that's kind of the situation right now. Computers sometimes die out of the blue. Nothing weird happening, just decided to just blue screen and just not work. But that's pretty much that. But if you want to help a little bit of a sad boy, or just specifically enjoy the things on the channel, I would really appreciate it. Please consider hitting the subscribe button and leaving a like, and let us get to 2,000 till the end of the year. But beside that, let's jump right into the list. Alright, before we jump right into the list, let's talk about the deck price. So for the deck price itself, the Shaddoll part, except from Schism, should be on really budget, because it got printed in the structure deck, so that's really good. As for the Invoked stuff, all of the cards either got reprinted in Battle of Legends or are going to be reprinted in the gold, maximum gold at the end of the week. But the only card that is obviously still very high price is Invocation, which you only need 2, and it's about $20 each. So we'll talk about the prices, but yeah. So now let's start out with the deck itself. So first things first, we're running 3 copies of Alistair the Invoker. Obviously this card is pretty much the heart and soul of the deck. You more play this deck if you don't really open up full combo, more of a control variant. Unlike the pure Shaddoll, you don't really depend on the combo to get you there. Sometimes you just play Mechaba, 2 hand traps and a Schism or something and pass, and then you just use the Schism as an interruption during your opponent's turn. So it's it's really dependent, but the point is the deck is more of a control variant rather than being aggressive, or should I say more combo oriented when you're playing this with the Invoked engine. And this is the most important normal summon. It's Search Invocation, obviously, and also it's kind of a hand trap with which giving your monsters 1000 attack, or should I say the fusion monsters 1000 attack, which is really good, and 1000 defense, which is really nice, because sometimes it can get you out of Boral's sword range, but I'm not sure if it's get you out of Axis code range. But now let's move on to the Shadolls. So first off, for the Shadolls, 3 Wendy, 3 Squamata, 2 Hedgehogs, sorry, not 3, 1 Beast, 1 Dragon, and 1 Aerial. Also should probably move the Dragon. I don't know why it's so glary. But yeah, so this is the Shaddoll lineup. You want to run 10 to 11 of these, so you might want to cut one of these or these. But in normal Shaddoll variant, you do want to run 12 to 14 of these. But because these could be a little bit of a brick in this deck if you specifically don't see a fusion spell or this in your hand, so you want to run a little bit less, because Alistair technically serves as another good normal summon and stuff like that. But the point is, these guys are really good. All have their own unique effects, which kind of give to the deck. Mostly you care about the effects that when they're sent to the graveyard, and there should be something that I mentioned for new players or for returning players or players that just get confused by this. There's a difference between cost effects, part of the cost or discarding effect and all that stuff. So if the effect that send these to the graveyard is part of the cost, or should I say the cost itself, their effect will not trigger. If they're sent to the graveyard, they will trigger their effect if the effect, send them to the graveyard. So if the cost is sending them to the graveyard, so for example, a discard or something, for something like Orpheus Scorpio, it will not trigger. So it's something weird that you should know about, because sometimes people trying to combine these with different archetypes and it doesn't work for them, because the cost of Shaddoll sent to the graveyard is a little bit different than people realize. But the point is, this is still a really good lineup. So anyway, as for the individual effects, all of them also have a flip effect, but mostly what you care about is the send to the graveyard effect. In case of Wendy, both of her effects are the same. You send to the graveyard or flip her, you get a Shaddoll monster face up or face down defense position on your side of the field as a special summon, which is really cool. Squamata is 3 copies of everything. It's a Foolish Burial when you send to the graveyard, or when you flip it, it's a pop, which is really nice, but mostly what you care about is that it's 3 copies of everything. I've seen some people running it at 2, but I think 3 is still really important. As for Hedgehog, when it's sent to the graveyard, which is the important part, you get to search any of these, but it does have a nice flip effect to search the Shaddoll spells or traps. Beast, when it's sent to the graveyard, draw a card, but you only just need 1 just in case, but it's mostly just here for a name. But when it's flipped, it does draw 2 and discard 1, but it rarely happens, if not even never. The most important thing about this is that sometimes it's another name that you send to the graveyard to draw a card. That's pretty much the point. Shaddoll Dragon, sent to the graveyard, it's pop a spell and trap, really good. But its flip effect to like bounce a card back to the hand is also really nice, but like I said, mostly what happens is the grave effect. But for Ariel, actually, compared to all of these, her flip effect happens more occasionally because that's what you would care about. Because if you're able to flip her, you return a Shaddoll monster that is banished to your side of the field in face down, up or face down defense position. Most of the time it's going to be in the combo construct, but like I said, it's mostly play as a control variant, so you don't really force yourself into the Shaddoll combo. So, you know, it does really nice if you have the correct hand, but if you don't have the correct hand, don't force yourself into this. It doesn't really matter. But the grave effect is also really nice. It's triple DD Crow, so that's also pretty cool. But that does it for the Shaddolls themselves. 11 Shaddolls, I felt like this is just a good number for me. As for the other monsters, we're running 1 Trick Clown and 1 Damage Juggler. I almost confused their names, because for some reason I just love to confuse their names. The point is, these are really good. I'm actually considering maybe running 2 of these beside like 1 of these and 1 of this. But having 1 and 1 actually works quite fine for most of the times. So yeah, 1 Damage Juggler, and then 1 Trick Clown is really good. The effect that you're able also to search the Damage Juggler, which could also just be like the lights that you need, is really nice. So you're able to use this to search this, is just really cool. The only problem is if you open up with 2 of these, like both of these in your opening hand, but it's mostly never happens. So, you know, it's really happens on rare occasions when I'm unlucky, but yeah. So that's it for the monsters that you actually use for your fusions, but now we'll move on for the hand traps, which sometimes you also use these for your fusions, but mostly you care about these to be like, you know, your additions, I guess. So these cards are really cool. The hand traps themselves actually have synergy with the deck because of the fact that like the attributes just match the fusions that you want to run in the extra deck. Right, so it's really nice, especially these because they're light. Also, really cool to know is that Ash Blossom and Gamma have kind of like an interaction, which I actually learned out pretty recently. Ash Blossom can negate Gamma if Driver's in the deck, and Gamma can negate Ash. Which I knew that already, but like Ash can negate Gamma when Driver is in the deck, which is really cool. So if your opponent Gamma you and you have an Alistair, you put the Ash. If your opponent trying to negate your Magical Meltdown with an Ash, you pull the Gamma. It's really funny on that regard. And they also just serve just nice hand traps, but mostly Gamma just serves either helping you going second or specifically if your opponent trying to stop you. Ash and Effective Veiler are mostly like the hand traps that you really use to stop your opponent generally. But that's pretty much does it for the monsters. Now we'll move on to the spells. So for the spells themselves, we're running triple copies of Magical Meltdown, 1 copy of Terraforming, and then double copies of Invocation. These are just a standard lineup in my opinion. If you do want to run Pot Desires, which I don't run in this deck because I think it's absolutely wasteful, because Pot Desires is really bad in this format, you could run 3 Invocations and be done with it. But I just felt like, you know, 2 Invocations just doing fine. Most of the time you're even going to open up with 1 of these in your hand anyway. But it's actually not a bad idea, or should I say not bad idea, not a bad problem to open up with 1 of these in your opening hand, because if your opponent stop your Alistair, you still get an Invocation, so that's actually kind of hilarious. But the point is, this card also can be used for a fusion summon for your Shaddolls if you use them from the hand, which is serve as like as a pseudo additional fusion spell, which is something that this deck kind of misses. So that's really cool. And then Magical Meltdown just stop your opponent from stopping you from fusion summoning. It's actually a broken card in so many ways to just protect your fusion monsters. So yeah, that's pretty much does it for the invoked fusion spells. But for the Shaddoll stuff, we're running triple copies of Shaddoll Fusion, and triple copies of Shaddoll fusions. You have no idea how important it is to open up a fusion spell. You have no idea. I've seen some people running this at 2, and I don't understand why. Running a fusion spell additional to the invocation is so important if you're trying to achieve the combo. If you don't try to achieve the combo, that's fine, but sometimes like you don't even open up with the Alistair and the Magical Meltdown, so opening up a fusion spell is so crucial to at least put up a window or something on the field so you can just actually play. It's really crucial to have this. So like one of these is just really good. And you also can retrieve them to the hand with Construct, which is also really nice, or also any other of your fusions that is not Apkalon. But yeah, opening one of these is just really important. And Shaddoll Fusion is also a quick play, which is just sometimes comes up, but mostly because of the new card, which is I'm also going to go into the traps, which is this Shaddoll Fusion effect in in the battle phase, kind of like, or should I say not battle phase, during the opponent's turn is less important because we have this. But now let's talk about like the utilities by themselves. Foolish Burial, obvious, it's the name of everything. Shaddoll Incarnation is mostly for the combo, but it also have another nice effect, which a lot of people forget about, which is the target Shaddoll in your graveyard, special summon it in face down or face down defense position, which, like I said, because sometimes you don't really go to the full combo, sometimes you're able to make a weird way to maybe making even Apkalon as part of your combo to bring out like a weird fringe board with like a Mechaba, and then you just use this to bring the Apkalon back as an interruption to your opponent, because it's technically, I think, counts like when you summon it, but I'm not really, if this card is special summon, I just double checked it, like if the card is special summon you get the effect of Apkalon, so it could serve as that, which is really cool. And then Schism is absolutely insane because you're able to use this. Most of the time you bring out Apkalon, unfortunately. I would say like you mostly want to bring out Winda, but sometimes you don't really have 2 darks in your graveyard. But yeah, this card is really important, is the trap that you mostly search with Construct, sending it to the graveyard, getting it to your hand, and then set it to your field, which is really important. So these are really good. This is the other card that is a little bit expensive. I think it's like around $10 right now, maybe 15, but you only need one, so it's not the end of the world. So you technically have like $50 to spend on these 3. Like these 3 are like $50, I think. But the rest of the deck should be like, kind of cheap for you. So just to throw it out there, that's the reason why this deck is a little bit on the expensive side, is because of Schism and Invocation, which you do need just 2 in 1, so it's not the end of the world, but it's a little bit high price for some people who like just really want super budget. But that's pretty much does it for the main deck. Now we'll move on to the extra deck. So for the extra deck, 2 copies of Construct, 2 copies of Winda, and then 1 copy of Apkalon for your fusions. I'm actually not really 100% sure if Winda is like a 2-of anymore, because I'm not really 100% sure if I'm going to her more than once in a duel, if even, and because of the fact that she's like not really that easily achievable. But sometimes you do have Winda pass, so I guess it's really good, and sometimes a lot of decks don't really have a way to deal with this, especially if they don't open up with Imperm. So, you just put Winda and they cannot do anything, which is absolutely hilarious. But yeah, these are really good. Apkalon, like I mentioned, is really nice, sometimes part of the combo. Unlike these, which retrieve a Shaddoll card from the graveyard, she search a Shaddoll card, or Shaddoll spell and trap, add it to your hand and discard a card, which is really good. So sometimes you do go into her as a part of your combo, because you do need 2 different attributes, and that also does come up because sometimes you don't open up with the light, or you just open up with the light for Alistair. It's kind of a weird thing. So you just like summon her, she search, like you send her to the graveyard, she search, you banish her, she search again. It's really important, and then you can just like use her as like additional pseudo interruption. I don't know. It's a cool card. I really like it. And it does come up multiple times, but you only need the 1. Anyway, like I said, this one is your lock, and this one is the absolute unbroken search that search all the time. Actually, her effect, I think, is a hard once per turn for the effect of search, which I forgot. This one's actually hard once per turn, but this one is not. But yeah, this one is really good. You get to search whatever you need, which is really nice. So, it's kind of like a weird balance between these 2. I know I'm rumbling a little bit on these, but like, you summon this sometimes, you summon this sometimes for your combos. It's really depending on your hand. And this one is kind of supposed to be your payoff. But yeah, that's pretty much does it for the Shaddoll fusions. As for the invoked fusions, 1 Mechaba, 1 Pikachu, and then one Agietis. I don't really know how to pronounce this one, but I think like running 1, 1, and 1 actually works for me perfectly. Also, they should be like this because of levels. But anyway, these are really good. Mechaba, you know what it does. It's just the negation of the archetype, which is a card I'm considering bumping up to 2, maybe taking one of these two and just put it. Pikachu is your OTK tool for the Invoked lineup, because sometimes you're not able to go into your Boral Sword or something really easily, so this is really good for that. And then this one is a new addition from Code of the Duelist, which allowing you to pop cards. Which is also really nice. And sometimes I do find myself in a weird situations that I'm fusion summon 2 of these, right? Because if I have 2 invocations in hand, or like I use the Alistair in hand, and then a fusion monsters I have used in the graveyard. For example, like a construct or something that I have in the graveyard, I banish it, I summon this, and it's kind of become another interruption. It's really good, it's really nice, and I like one of each of these. But obviously I'm considering maybe cutting a slot and adding a second one of these, but which I would really like to know. What do you think in the comments down below? But now for the links. The links themselves are a little bit of the confusing lineup for me, because the links beside these two are really kind of weird, because I don't really know what to exactly put, so I'm not really 100% sure yet. So like if you have any suggestions, again in the comments, let me know. But these two are an absolute must. You have to run these at all times, because they're just like Alistair goes into this, and then you can go with Alistair into this, or sometimes you don't even take Alistair into this. But the point is like, use these to get Alistair off the field to your graveyard and just like create a link play, which is really cool. But for these guys, they're really important. As for these, this one is just sometimes draw a card if you get the full combo. This one is the link that you make after you make the full combo, because sometimes you have like additional monsters in your side of the field that you don't really know what to do. So you make this, and then during your opponent's turn you make an Appaloosa sometimes. Or sometimes you make this. It's really weird for these. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm not really sure about these two specifically. These two are like the two that I kind of like don't really know what to do with this. But these two are actually really good. So, you know, like Boral Sword and Appaloosa are really nice, but Madness and IP are the two that I'm not really 100% sure of. I'm actually considering maybe cutting this and adding a unicorn, but for the most part, this extra deck kind of works. Like I said, the fusion is mostly the main part, but the links do come up. But like I said, it's something that I'm less sure about at the moment. But that's pretty much does it for the list itself. Yeah, pretty basics, pretty simple. This deck is kind of like got figured out for the most part. There's really nothing new about it, to be honest. But it's still really fun and something that you should probably pick up if you're just looking for a fun with Shaddolls and Invoked together. Because it's Shaddoll Invoked. But that's pretty much it for that. Now let's move on into the side deck, and later down the line, after that, the choices for your deck for the next time after the things that I explained at the start. But now let's jump right into it. Alright, so for the side deck itself, actually for this deck specifically, I thought it will be much of an interesting side deck compared to other ones, because it's more interesting and there are a few things that you can do here which are really cool. So for the side deck, for me specifically, that works for me. You could run it differently as way that you want, but for me specifically, I actually like to run a small Mech Knight engine, which is 3 purple, 2 blue, and 1 indigo, which works really nicely for me. I really like these, as well as the 2 copies of Ghost Ogre, just to have an additional hand trap, I guess. This is kind of like works for me. And then I really like to also run, because like I'm going to say this right now, which I forgot to mention, Mech Knights help break boards, so that's why I really like them. But for the additional cards that I run, which I have an additional 7, if I remember correctly the number, is 3 copies of Super Polymerization, 1 copy of Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, because we do need the additional Super Poly target, which is really cool, and then 3 copies of Cosmic Cyclone, which I really like. And it's kind of like works for me because sometimes you do need the hard removal for the Mystic Mine or some weird thing that your opponent put up, like there can be only 1. And like I said, like Mech Knights do help you break boards, and they're really good and also really have nice interactions with Alistair anyway. And for the fact that like they're really nice, so I really like them. And then obviously Super Poly is really good, Ghost Ogre is just a good hand trap to switch, and Cosmic Cyclone, which I mentioned. But that pretty much does it for the side decks. Sweet, simple. If you don't really like the Mech Knights, you can run different hand traps, you can run Zoo King Alpha if you have the money for it. You can run whatever you want to, but this is the side deck that works specifically for me. Side decks really depend on your pocket metagame, so I'm just going to throw that out there. But now for the deck choices of next time, I guess, because it's not going to be next week, because next week we still got Altergeist and Pendulum Magician to cover, but we still have choices that you can decide for next time, and I'm also going to bring that out in the other videos that will come out, but I'm going to decide right now. People already voted. Please don't vote again in the next video, because I'm going to keep a tab on that anyway, and I just don't really want to mess with that. I'm just going to say that out there, so if you already voted for the deck after the decks that are going to come out, which are Orthogeist and Pendulum Magician, please don't vote again, because this is just going to be a little bit too annoying for me to deal with, and I just don't really want to deal with that. But yeah, so for the options that we have, for A option, we have Salamangreats, which are returning back, obviously, because they didn't get chosen. Option B will be Endymion. Option C will be Odd Eyes just generally, because I just haven't done Odd Eyes for so long. I really want to do that again, but I haven't done that for so long. And the last option, I think it will go with another new list of Predator plans if you like to see. So you have Salamangreats as A, Endymion as B, Odd Eyes as C, and Predator Plant as D. These are your options. Hope you enjoyed them, and hopefully you also enjoyed this video. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully things will be coming back again next week. I lost a lot of really important things like the Phantom Rage set review and stuff like that, which right now it's just, I'm probably not going to do it anyway, unfortunately, because it's way too late. But yeah, I also have a little bit other plans, but things happens, what can you do? And even though I'm a little bit sad about that, again, like I said, what can I do? But yeah, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and also leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I would really appreciate them, if they're of course nice, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.